Fleet Admiral Dex Tylos watched in disbelief as his perfect formation crumbled. 30 of his 50 ships were damaged or disabled. The humans fought like nothing he had seen in 3 centuries of military service. They ignored all established rules of engagement, changed tactics constantly, and seemed to anticipate his every move. "Order all remaining ships to concentrate fire on their lead vessel," he commanded, pointing at the Defiance. But the order never reached his fleet. The Avalon Protocol had infected every level of their communication systems. Each Council ship fought alone, while Earth's vessels worked in perfect coordination. On the bridge of the Defiance, Admiral Williams saw their advantage. "Now's our chance. All ships target the Eternal Dominion." Earth's remaining 10 ships converged on the Council flagship, firing from multiple angles. The massive vessel's shields began to fail under the assault. Dex Tylos knew defeat when he saw it. "Prepare for emergency fold space jump. We must return to Centauri Prime and regroup." As the Council fleet attempted to retreat, Williams opened a channel to all ships in the battle zone. His voice was calm but firm. "This is Admiral George Williams of Earth. We will never kneel. We will never accept subordination. And we will never stop fighting until all species are recognized as equals." The message was broadcast across the galaxy by the Allied fleet. On 100 worlds, beings of all species heard the human declaration. The Council flagship limped away with just 15 surviving vessels. Earth had won, but at a cost. 3 of their ships had been destroyed, and the others had suffered significant damage. Hundreds of brave men and women had given their lives for freedom. On Centauri Prime, the Galactic Council was in chaos. The evidence presented by Lisa Spencer had revealed corruption at the highest levels. More than 50 subordinate species had declared independence from Council rule. High Councilors are called for martial law and the mobilization of all remaining military forces. "We must crush this rebellion immediately." But his words no longer carried the weight they once did. The Council chamber erupted in argument as representatives from moderate factions stood against him. "The subordination system has failed," declared the Ardonian ambassador. "It has bred only resentment and rebellion. We must adapt or face our end." 3 weeks later, Jack Wright and Susan Miller stood in the Great Council chamber, no longer as petitioners, but as representatives of a recognized independent Earth. Beside them were ambassadors from 24 formerly subordinate species. The new Council leadership, headed by moderates who had overthrown the hardliners, signed the Treaty of Recognition. The document acknowledged the independence of all sentient species and abolished the classification system forever. "This is only the beginning," Jack told the assembled delegates. "Earth proposes a new galactic alliance of free worlds, where all species meet as equals, where innovation is celebrated, not controlled, and where cooperation replaces subordination." The proposal passed with overwhelming support. The old Galactic Council was dissolved, its grand chamber to become the meeting place for the new alliance. Back on Earth, people celebrated in the streets. The threat was over. Humanity had not only secured its freedom, but had changed the course of galactic history. In Professor Carter's lab, Maya Johnson looked out the window at the celebrations. Susan Miller joined her. "What will you do now?" Susan asked. "You could return to Council space if you wish." Maya shook her head. "This is my home. The Council raised me, but they never taught me what it means to be human. I want to learn that here." On the EDS Defiance, now undergoing repairs in Earth orbit, Admiral Williams and Commander Grant watched the blue planet below. "Was it worth it?" Grant asked, thinking of those who had been lost. Williams nodded slowly. "They tried to make us bow. Instead, we showed the galaxy what humans do when backed into a corner." "Which is what?" Grant asked. Williams smiled. "We changed the rules of the game." As Earth celebrated, ships from 12 worlds arrived bearing representatives eager to join the new alliance. The first treaty to be signed would establish free trade and cultural exchange. The second would create a mutual defense pact. The third would launch a joint scientific initiative. Where the Council had stagnated for thousands of years, the new alliance would grow and change. Where the Council had demanded conformity, the alliance would celebrate difference. And at the center of it all was the species that had been declared subordinate and had responded by remaking the galaxy, humanity. The message arrived on a Tuesday, not with a bang or flash of light, but as a simple data packet received by radio telescopes around the world. At first, the scientists at NASA thought it was an error or perhaps a sophisticated prank. The message contained detailed instructions for building a communication device unlike anything humans had created before. 3 months later, Jack Wright stood in the Oval Office, his palms sweaty as he faced the President and Joint Chiefs. As America's top diplomat with a background in both astrophysics and international law, Jack had been the natural choice to lead humanity's response team. "The device works," Jack said. "We established two-way communication this morning. They call themselves the Galactic Council, a federation of over 200 alien civilizations. And they want to meet us." Susan Miller, standing beside Jack, added, "They've invited Earth to send representatives to their headquarters on a planet they call Centauri Prime. They're sending a transport vessel that will arrive in 2 weeks." The room erupted in voices until the President raised her hand. "And we're certain this isn't a threat." "They could have attacked without warning if that was their intention," Susan replied. "They seemed genuine in their offer of peaceful contact." 14 days later, Jack and Susan boarded the alien vessel along with a small team of scientists and security personnel. The ship was silver and smooth, with no visible seams or windows. Inside, gravity shifted subtly as the vessel accelerated beyond anything humans had achieved in space travel. The journey took only 3 days, a trip that should have spanned years. When they emerged from what their escort called Fold Space, a blue-green planet loomed before them, surrounded by rings of orbital stations that gleamed like jewels. "Welcome to Centauri Prime," said their guide, a tall being with iridescent skin who had introduced himself as Meridia. "The Council awaits." The Council chamber took Jack's breath away. A vast dome of transparent material revealed the star-filled sky above, while around a circular table sat beings of every imaginable form. Some were vaguely humanoid, others resembled nothing on Earth. Floating gas clouds contained in energy fields, crystalline structures that pulsed with light, and creatures that seemed to shift between solid and liquid states. "Representatives of Earth," announced a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "We welcome you to the galactic community." The speaker was revealed as High Counselor Zrin, an ancient-looking being with gray skin and 6 limbs. For 50,000 years, the Council has maintained peace and order among spacefaring civilizations. Each species is classified according to their technological development and cultural maturity. Jack smiled and stepped forward. "We're honored to join such a distinguished body. Earth looks forward to learning from your collective wisdom." "Indeed," Zrin continued. "After careful study of your civilization, we have classified humans as a Class 3 subordinate species." The smile froze on Jack's face. "I'm sorry, could you explain what that means?" Susan tensed beside him as an image appeared in the air. A complex chart showing hundreds of species arranged in a hierarchy. Class 3 subordinate species serve the greater galactic community by providing resources and labor to more advanced civilizations, explained another council member, a floating orb of blue light. "It is a great honor. Many species spend millennia advancing to even this rank." Jack struggled to keep his diplomatic composure. "With respect, we came here expecting to establish relations as equals." Laughter rippled through the chamber. "Equality?" Zrin's voice carried amusement. "Your species has barely mastered basic space travel. You still wage war among yourselves. The classification is generous, considering your development level." "The Council has prepared a subordination treaty," said a reptilian being, sliding a tablet-like device across the table. "Earth is expected to ratify this within 1 standard galactic month. Refusal would necessitate protective occupation for your own safety." As Jack took the tablet, he caught Susan's eye. Her face remained professional, but he recognized the fury in her gaze that matched his own. "We'll need to bring this back to Earth for consideration," Jack said carefully. "Of course," Zrin nodded, "though the outcome is merely a formality. The Council's assessments are never wrong." As they were escorted from the chamber, Susan whispered, "They have no idea what they've just done, do they?" Jack shook his head. "No, but they're about to learn that humans don't subordinate easily." The journey back to Earth was quiet. Jack spent most of his time studying the subordination treaty, looking for any loophole. Susan worked on drafting the report to world leaders. Neither wanted to voice the obvious. The Galactic Council saw humans as little more than useful animals. "They expect us to mine our own planet and ship resources to them," Jack said as Earth appeared in the view screen, "and provide labor units, which is just a fancy term for slaves." Susan nodded. "I noticed something else. This isn't unique to us. I talked with some of the service staff at the Council headquarters. There are dozens of subordinate species serving the advanced ones." When they landed, the world was waiting. The UN Security Council convened an emergency session where Jack and Susan presented their findings. The reaction was swift and unified in a way Earth's nations had never been before. "We reject this classification entirely," said the Secretary General. "Humanity will not submit to servitude, no matter how technologically advanced these aliens may be." In the days that followed, Jack and Susan returned to the special communication device, formally challenging the Council's ruling through official channels. The response was dismissive. "Your appeal is noted," said a bored-looking alien bureaucrat, "but classification decisions are final. Prepare your planet for integration." That evening, Jack found himself in the Pentagon's most secure meeting room. Military leaders from around the world gathered around a table where Susan was speaking. "We have 25 days before they expect our answer," she said, "and we have to assume they're preparing for our refusal." Navy Commander Olivia Jones stood up. She was tall with short blonde hair and a reputation for unconventional tactics. "We've been analyzing the goodwill gifts they left behind. There's something interesting about their technology." Engineer Daniel Brown pulled out what looked like an alien tablet. "Their tech is advanced, but it's also predictable. They've been developing the same systems along the same paths for thousands of years. There's very little innovation, just refinement." "What does that mean for us?" Jack asked. Daniel smiled. "It means they might not be prepared for how humans approach problems. We don't think like they do." The meeting adjourned with a plan forming. Jack would return to the Council to stall for time while Earth prepared. But first, they needed allies. The next day, Jack requested a private meeting with the Krell ambassador, a reptilian being whose species had been classified as subordinate a century earlier. "Why would I risk helping humans?" Ambassador Krellvac asked, his scaled skin reflecting the light. "The Council punishes dissent harshly." "Because we have no intention of accepting our classification," Jack said. "And I think you've been waiting for someone to challenge the system." The reptilian's inner eyelids blinked slowly. "Perhaps. The Krell were once proud warriors. Now we dig minerals on dead moons. What if we could change that? Not just for humans, but for all subordinate species." A low hiss escaped Krellvac. "Interesting. There are others who might join this conversation. The Vex have been grumbling about rebellion for decades." Meanwhile, Susan had returned to Earth to coordinate with global leaders. In research labs across the planet, scientists were working around the clock to understand alien technology. At NASA, Olivia Jones watched as Daniel Brown disassembled an alien power core. "They use crystalline matrices to channel energy," he explained. "But they only use them in specific configurations. If we rearrange them," he made a small adjustment. "The power output doubled, then tripled." "They never tried this?" Olivia asked. Daniel shook his head. "They follow rules established thousands of years ago. They don't experiment anymore." Olivia smiled. "But we do." Back on Centauri Prime, Jack sat across from an insectoid Vex representative in a shadowy corner of a lower-level establishment. The council has grown complacent. The Vex clicked through its translator. They believe their way is the only way. And what if we showed them differently? Jack asked. The Vex's compound eyes gleamed. Then perhaps it is time the subordinates taught the masters a lesson. On Earth, in a converted aircraft hangar, Olivia stared at the newly constructed prototype. It looked like a jumble of human and alien technology, ugly but functional. Will it work? She asked. Daniel patted the hull. They think they're coming to collect new servants. Instead, they're about to meet humanity at its most creative and its most stubborn. The world changed overnight. Old rivalries between nations faded as humanity united against a common threat. They called it Operation Prometheus, stealing fire from the gods. In underground labs across every continent, scientists and engineers worked without rest. They took apart alien technology, learned how it worked, and then did what humans do best. They improved it. Professor Alan Carter stood in his lab at MIT, surrounded by holographic displays. He was older, with gray hair and tired eyes that hadn't seen sleep in days. His hands moved through the light, adjusting formulas that combined Earth physics with alien science. The Council uses energy shields that operate on a fixed frequency, he explained to Olivia and Daniel, who had flown in to see his work. They'd used the same basic design for thousands of years because it works against their known weapons. But not against ours? Olivia asked. Alan smiled. They never considered using phase shifting. It wouldn't occur to them because their physics developed differently than ours. Their shields block energy at specific frequencies. Our new design shifts between frequencies 50 times per second. Daniel whistled. They won't know what hit them. Similar breakthroughs happen daily. In Tokyo, engineers redesigned alien engines to be 30% more efficient. In Nairobi, computer scientists created new targeting systems that worked faster than anything the Council had. In Rio, weapons specialists developed hybrid weapons combining human and alien principles. Jack returned from Centauri Prime with valuable intelligence gathered from their growing network of allies. He met Susan at the United Nations building in New York, now the headquarters for Earth's defense. The Council still thinks we'll surrender, Jack said. They're preparing a small fleet to escort us into the new era of servitude. They don't expect resistance. Susan showed him the latest reports. Then they're in for a surprise. We got 5 ships ready. 5. Against their fleet? Jack looked worried. 5 is all we need, Susan replied with confidence. Wait until you see them. At the new space dock hidden on the far side of the moon, Jack stared in awe at humanity's answer to the Council. 5 vessels hung in the darkness, built from a combination of Earth metals and alien materials. They looked strange, not the smooth, elegant designs of Council ships, but functional, almost rough in appearance. The largest ship, named EDS Defiance, was nearly complete. Admiral George Williams, a veteran naval commander with a stern face and steady hands, led Jack through its corridors. We've equipped it with Professor Carter's shield technology, Williams explained, and weapons systems that the Council won't expect. How many crew? Jack asked, watching engineers install what looked like a modified alien power core. 300. All volunteers, all the best in their fields. Williams paused at a viewport where Earth hung in the distance. We've compressed decades of space development into weeks. It's not pretty, but it works better than it looks. The deadline approached. With just 3 days remaining before the Council expected Earth's submission, the final preparations were made. The 5 ships were crewed and ready. Around the world, smaller defensive systems were in place. In the White House Situation Room, the President addressed the combined military leadership of Earth's nations. We have always found strength in our diversity, in our different ways of thinking, she said. Now that human trait may save us all. The Council believes we will surrender or be easily defeated. They think we will follow their rules of engagement, their patterns of warfare. Admiral Williams nodded. But we won't. No, the President agreed. We will show them something they've never seen before. Human ingenuity unleash. Operation Prometheus is now active. In orbit around Pluto, sensors detected the arrival of the Council Enforcement Fleet. 12 smooth, silver ships appeared through what looked like tears in space. They moved in perfect formation, following protocols established centuries ago. Their commander, your fellows, sent a message to Earth. Your time to accept subordination has ended. We come to escort you into your proper place in the galactic order. The response was brief, sent from the bridge of the EDS Defiance as it and its 4 sister ships moved out from behind the moon. Humanity accepts no masters. Come and see why. Admiral George Williams stood on the bridge of the EDS Defiance, watching the Council fleet approach on the main screen. The alien ships moved in a perfect V formation, silver against the blackness of space. "They're hailing us, sir," said the communications officer. On screen, Williams ordered. The face of Commander Eurtholos appeared. He had blue skin with ridges along his skull and eyes that glowed yellow. "Human vessels, power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Resistance is pointless and will only result in unnecessary damage to your ships." Williams smiled slightly. "This is Admiral George Williams of Earth Defense Ship Defiance. We reject your classification and your authority. Leave our solar system immediately." Eurtholos looked surprised, then amused. "You have 5 crewed vessels. We have 12 advanced warships. Mathematics should make your situation clear, even to a primitive species." "We're pretty good at math," Williams replied. "Good enough to know that 0 losses on our side and 12 on yours equals victory for Earth." The alien commander's eyes narrowed. "So be it. Your species requires a lesson in humility." The screen went dark. Williams turned to his crew. "Battle stations. Activate Carter shields. Execute pattern Delta." Throughout the 5 Earth ships, crews moved with practiced precision. They had trained for weeks for this moment. On the Council flagship, Eurtholos watched with mild interest as the human vessels began to move. Their formation made no sense according to standard battle doctrine. Instead of grouping together to combine shield strength, they scattered in different directions. "Primitive tactics," he said to his second-in-command. "Target the largest vessel and fire when ready." The Council ships fired in perfect unison. Streams of energy shot toward the Defiance. Eurtholos expected to see the ship explode or at least suffer major damage. Instead, the beams seemed to pass through the vessel harmlessly. "What happened?" he demanded. "Their shields are shifting frequencies," his weapons officer reported, confusion in his voice. "Our weapons cannot lock on." Before Eurtholos could respond, the human ships attacked. They didn't fire in the coordinated volleys that Council doctrine required. Each ship fired independently, targeting different points on different Council vessels. Their weapons were strange hybrids of technologies that the Council sensors couldn't properly identify. 2 Council ships reported shield failures. A third lost engine power. The human vessels moved in unpredictable patterns, never staying still, never following the established rules of space combat. "This is impossible," Eurtholos muttered. "They can't have developed these technologies so quickly." On the Defiance, Williams watched the battle unfold. "They're trying to regroup," he said. "Push the advantage. Execute pattern Omega." The 5 Earth ships suddenly accelerated to speeds the Council fleet hadn't anticipated. They weaved between the larger alien vessels, firing precisely at weak points that their Krell and Vex allies had identified. A Council ship exploded as its power core was breached. 2 more suffered critical damage to their weapon systems. The remaining vessels attempted to adjust their tactics, but they were bound by thousands of years of unchanging military doctrine. "Sir," reported Olivia Jones from her position at Tactical, "they're attempting to retreat. 3 of their ships are creating fold space apertures." Williams nodded. "Let them go. We want survivors to tell the Council what happened here. 7 Council ships had been destroyed or disabled. The remaining 5 fled back toward Centauri Prime, carrying news of a defeat that should have been impossible. After the battle, Williams addressed the combined crews via ship-wide communication. Today, we proved that humanity cannot and will not be subordinated. But this was only the first engagement. The Council will return with a larger force, and they'll be better prepared. In his private quarters, he sent a message to Earth. First battle. Victory. Council forces retreated. 0 casualties on our side. Recommend immediate acceleration of Operation Prometheus. They'll be back, and next time, they'll know what they're facing. On Centauri Prime, the Galactic Council received the news with shock and disbelief. High Councilors are called an emergency session. How could a Class 3 subordinate species defeat our enforcement fleet? He demanded. A science advisor spoke hesitantly. Preliminary reports suggest they've modified our technology in ways we never considered possible. Zrin's face darkened. Dispatch the main battle fleet. These humans must be taught their place. In the shadows of the Council chamber, the representatives of the Krell and Vex exchanged subtle glances. The news would spread quickly through the subordinate species. Humans had done the impossible. They had fought back and won. News of the human victory spread through the galaxy like wildfire. On 100 worlds, members of subordinate species whispered about Earth and its defiance. Council authorities tried to control the story, claiming it was merely a minor setback, but the truth could not be contained. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, High Councilors faced angry questions from representatives of the most powerful species. How could this happen? Demanded the delegate from the Ardonian Empire, a tall being with crystalline skin. A primitive species defeating our ships is unacceptable. Zrin's 6 limbs moved in a gesture of reassurance. The humans employed unexpected tactics. It will not happen again. I have ordered our main battle fleet to mobilize. In a dark corner of the chamber, Council Intelligence Director Sorlak watched the proceedings with cold calculation. His species resembled large felines with scaled skin instead of fur. He had spent centuries ensuring the Council's dominance. This human problem required his personal attention. After the meeting, he summoned his most skilled agent to his private chambers. Agent Johnson, he said to the human female who entered and bowed. The time has come to activate you. Maya Johnson looked like any other human, but she had been taken from Earth as an infant, raised and trained by the Council. For 30 years, she had been prepared for this mission. I am ready, Director, she said without emotion. What are my orders? Return to your species' homeworld. Infiltrate their defense program. Learn the source of their technological advancements and sabotage it from within. The humans must be brought to heel. On Earth, celebrations of the victory were tempered by the knowledge that a greater conflict loomed. In Washington, D.C., Jack Wright and Susan Miller met with military leaders to plan their next moves. The Council won't underestimate us again, Jack said. We need to accelerate our technology development. Susan nodded. More importantly, we need allies. Our communication network with other subordinate species is growing. The Krell have openly declared support for Earth. 3 more species are secretly providing intelligence. Admiral Williams joined them by secure video link from the Defiance. Our ships performed better than expected, but we need more of them. The Council's main battle fleet includes hundreds of vessels. As they spoke, Maya Johnson landed on Earth using false credentials that identified her as a physicist returning from research in Europe. Her mission was clear: infiltrate Operation Prometheus and destroy it from within. Within a week, she was assigned to Professor Carter's team at MIT. Her counsel provided background, easily passing Earth's security checks. She watched the humans work, marveling at their creativity despite herself. They approached problems differently than any species she had known. In Carter's lab, she observed as the professor developed a new communication system that could not be intercepted by Council technology. The quantum entanglement principles they use are limited, Carter explained to his team, unaware of the spy among them. They never explored the possibilities of multidimensional phase shifting because their mathematics developed along different lines than ours. Maya made notes for her council handlers, but found herself increasingly conflicted. These humans weren't the primitives she had been taught they were. Their adaptability was remarkable. On the other side of the galaxy, the Council's treatment of lesser species grew harsher as fear spread among the ruling classes. On the mining world Keltra, Krell workers were executed for chanting Earth during their shift change. On Vexus Prime, the insectoid Vex faced new restrictions on movement and assembly. But the crackdowns only fueled the growing resistance. Underground networks formed between subordinate species. Messages of support reached Earth from dozens of worlds. What had begun as a simple classification dispute was becoming something much larger. In his quarters aboard the Defiance, Admiral Williams received a secure transmission from a Krell commander. The reptilian's face filled the screen. The Council main battle fleet has departed Centauri Prime, the Krell reported. 50 capital ships with escort vessels. They will reach your system in 15 of your days. Williams nodded grimly. Thank you, friend. We'll be ready. But as he ended the transmission, he wondered if Earth's 5 ships, soon to be 12 as new vessels neared completion, could possibly stand against such a force. They needed something more than just advanced technology. They needed to change the rules of the game entirely. The great chamber of the Galactic Council buzzed with angry voices. Representatives from 200 species argued as news of more rebellions reached Centauri Prime. 3 mining colonies had stopped sending resources. A transport fleet had been seized by its Vex crew. High Councilor Zrin called for order, his 6 limbs raised high. We face a crisis unlike any in Council history. The human contagion spreads. Their defiance inspires others. Council Elder Zrin, one of the oldest beings in the galaxy, rose from his seat. His thin body seemed barely able to support itself, but his voice carried power. We must crush Earth completely, he said. Make such an example of them that no species will dare rebel again for 1,000 years. Murmurs of agreement filled the chamber, but then a voice called out from the Ardonian delegation. Perhaps we should consider why this rebellion spread so quickly. The speaker was Lisa Spencer, officially an advisor to the Ardonian ambassador. She looked human because she was human. A deep cover agent placed years ago as part of Earth's first contact preparations. What do you mean? Zrin asked, eyes narrowing. Lisa stood tall. I have reviewed the human classification files. Their technological development was assessed at a much lower level than their actual achievements. Their cultural evaluation ignored significant progress in their social structures. What are you suggesting? Elder Zrin demanded. I am suggesting, Lisa said clearly, that the classification was deliberately falsified to gain access to Earth's resources. The chamber erupted in shouts. Lisa activated a holographic display showing internal council messages that her team had hacked from council databases. These communications between Classification Director Vortak and Mining Consortium representatives discuss Earth's rare mineral deposits 6 months before the official classification was issued. Chaos broke out as faction leaders shouted accusations. The Council, united for 50,000 years, began to fracture along old lines. Species that had championed fair treatment of newcomers demanded investigation. Those who benefited most from the subordination system called for Lisa's arrest. Meanwhile on Earth, Maya Johnson sat alone in her apartment, reviewing what she had learned about Operation Prometheus. For the first time in her life, she questioned her loyalty to the Council. That morning, she had witnessed something unexpected. When a lab accident injured 3 scientists, Professor Carter had rushed into danger to save them, suffering burns in the process. Such selflessness contradicted everything she had been taught about humans. In the hospital waiting room, she had watched families gather, supporting each other. A child had offered her a cookie. A stranger had given her a coffee when she looked tired. These were not the selfish primitives described in council education. These were people who cared for each other, who innovated because they wanted better lives for everyone, not just themselves. Her communicator beeped with an encrypted message from Director Xorlak. Council divided. Accelerate timeline. Destroy research facilities immediately. Maya stared at the message for a long time, then made her decision. Hours later, she sat across from Jack Wright and Susan Miller in a secure room, telling them everything. About her upbringing by the Council, about the planned attack, about the coordinates of vulnerable Council supply lines. "Why are you helping us?" Susan asked suspiciously. Maya looked down at her hands. "Because you treated me like one of your own from the moment I arrived. The Council raised me to believe I was superior because of my training, that humans were lesser beings who needed guidance. But I've seen more innovation, more compassion, more humanity in weeks here than in my entire life with the Council." Jack nodded slowly. "If what you're saying about the Council's division is true, we have an opportunity." Susan agreed. "We've always known we couldn't win a prolonged war. But if we can split the Council, convince enough members that the subordination system is corrupt, then we don't have to defeat their fleet," Jack finished. "We just need to hold out long enough for political change." Maya leaned forward. "The main battle fleet is still coming. 50 capital ships against your 12. And Commander Irthalos has been replaced by Fleet Admiral Dex Tylos, the Council's most decorated military leader." Jack's expression remained determined. "Then we'll need to be ready with something they'll never expect." Time was running out. The Council's main battle fleet would reach Earth in 3 days. In orbit around Mars, Earth's 12 ships prepared for a fight it could not win through conventional means. On the bridge of the EDS Defiance, Admiral Williams studied the tactical display with Commander Peter Grant, a younger officer with a reputation for bold strategies. "Even with our advanced shields and weapons, we can't defeat 50 capital ships," Grant said, stating what everyone knew. Williams nodded. "That's why we're not going to fight a conventional battle. We're going to launch Operation Liberty." Grant smiled. "The Council won't know what hit them." While Earth's ships gathered, a smaller fleet assembled in secret. 20 vessels from 7 different subordinate species arrived through fold space at coordinates far from established routes. The reptilian Krell contributed 6 warships. The insectoid Vex brought 4 fast attack vessels. Others came in 1s and 2s, all species who had suffered under Council rule. Aboard the Krell flagship, Jack Wright addressed the assembled alien captains via holographic link. "For too long, the Council has used its classification system to exploit worlds and enslave species," he said. "Today we strike not just for Earth, but for all who have been deemed lesser by their standards." The plan was daring. While Earth's ships engaged the Council fleet at the edge of the solar system, this coalition would attack key Council military installations across 3 sectors. The goal wasn't victory, it was disruption. Meanwhile, in a secured lab beneath MIT, Karen White worked frantically on her computer, lines of code scrolling across multiple screens. She was young but brilliant, recruited from a cybersecurity firm to lead a critical part of Earth's defense. "How much longer?" Susan Miller asked, watching over her shoulder. "Almost there," Karen replied without looking up. "The Avalon Protocol is nearly complete." Maya Johnson, now working with Earth, provided the access codes needed to infiltrate Council systems. The protocol was a computer virus designed to disrupt the centralized command network that coordinated Council ships in battle. "Their entire fleet operates on standardized systems," Maya explained. "They value uniformity above all else. One gap in their security is all we need." At the edge of the solar system, the Council fleet emerged from fold space. 50 massive warships arranged in perfect battle formation. At their center was the dreadnought Eternal Dominion, twice the size of any other vessel. Fleet Admiral Dex Tylos stood on its command deck, 6 arms folded behind his back. His gray skin was decorated with the markings of 100 victories. "The humans have 12 ships waiting near their 4th planet," his sensor officer reported. No sign of other defenses. Textilos laughed softly. They are brave but foolish. Begin standard approach pattern. No deviations from doctrine. The Council fleet moved forward, weapons charge, shields at maximum. They expected the humans to either surrender or fight, and die bravely. They did not expect what happened next. As the fleets neared each other, Karen White pressed a key on her computer. Avalon Protocol activated. Throughout the Council fleet, command systems flickered. Navigation screens showed false information. Communication between ships became garbled or cut off entirely. What is happening? Dex Tylos demanded as his own displays went dark. On the Defiance, Admiral Williams gave the order. All ships, execute Pattern Zeta. Earth's 12 ships suddenly accelerated to maximum speed. Instead of forming a defensive line, they split into pairs, each targeting different Council vessels. Their movements were unpredictable, their attacks precisely coordinated while the Council ships struggled to communicate. Across the galaxy, the Allied fleet of former subordinate species struck Council bases simultaneously. On 20 worlds, resistance movements rose up against their overseers. Lisa Spencer addressed an emergency session of the Galactic Council, with more evidence of corruption in the classification system. As she spoke, screens around the chamber showed live feeds of the rebellions spreading across Council space. This is what happens, she told the stunned delegates, when you treat sentient beings as tools to be used. In the battle near Earth, the Council's perfect formations dissolved into chaos. Without their centralized command systems, each ship fought individually, something they had never trained for. The human vessels, smaller but more agile, targeted engines and weapons systems with surgical precision. Commander Peter Grant's voice echoed across all Earth communication channels. For liberty. The tide of the battle was turning, not through superior firepower, but through superior strategy, adaptability, and the one thing the Council had never valued: cooperation between equals.